Mr. Cowden, where are you currently employed?
I work for the Chandler Fire Department in Chandler, Arizona.
And I guess for the record, we'll have you state your full name. I forgot to do that.
Okay, yes, my name is Scott Cowden.
How long have you been employed with the fire department?
Almost 24 years.
And what is your specific title or role in association with the fire department?
I'm a fire engineer, which means you drive the apparatus, still a firefighter, and then also a paramedic.
And do you have training in order to be a paramedic?
Yes, I started out as an EMT, and I went to paramedic school and graduated in 2007.
Do you also teach courses on CPR?
I used to be a CPR instructor for about 12 years, teaching those courses, yes.
Were you working with the fire department on July 11th of 2019?
Yes, I was.
Do you recall being dispatched out to the report of a shooting victim?
Yes.
And Your Honor, I'm going to object just to make sure on the record that our 404B objection is still noted. My client's not under trial here for anything that happened in Arizona, so we object for relevance.
All right, I've considered that objection. The court's previously taken that issue up on a ruling that was made in February. For the reasons I incorporated into that ruling, and for under 404B, the court does determine that this evidence can be presented with an appropriate limiting instruction. So, Ms. Blake, that limiting instruction has already been provided to the jury and will be provided again at the time of deliberations. For that reason, the objection is overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. When you respond out, or I guess let me back up. When you responded out on July 11th, where initially did you respond to?
We responded to a residential house for a gunshot wound or gunshot victim.
Did you enter the residence when you initially responded?
Yes.
And when you entered the residence, did you locate the individual that had been shot?
Yes.
What did you observe regarding that individual?
We were led into the house by a Chandler police officer. They were on scene before us, and when you went into that front door, that entry room is where we found Charles laying on the ground, on the floor, on his back, and he appeared to be unconscious as you approached him.
And when you say Charles, did you learn his last name?
Charles Vallow, we did learn. My captain on the crew was documenting the call. He would have been communicating with the Chandler officers who were communicating with other individuals on the scene that would be able to supply that information.
And you eventually learned his identity as well?
Yes.
And you said he appeared to be unconscious. Did you get closer to Mr. Vallow?
Yes, I would have been the first one to actually make it to Charles. So then you're going to go through that process of kind of doing your assessment and evaluation of him.
And when you were doing the assessment and evaluation, did you notice any injuries on his person?
Yes, there was some blood on his shirt. I had to lift up his shirt so I could find the proper landmarks to be able to perform CPR while checking for his level of responsiveness, breathing, things like that. And he had 2 gunshot wounds.
And had you seen gunshot wounds before?
Yes.
And those were consistent with other gunshot wounds that you'd seen?
Yes.
And when you say that you pulled up a shirt or removed the shirt to perform CPR, did you in fact perform CPR on Mr. Vallow?
Yes, I did.
Did you make any observations as you were performing CPR?
Yes. So based on my experience, both as a first responder, firefighter, and a paramedic, and also a CPR instructor, you have certain landmarks that you're looking for, and we were led to believe that CPR had been started prior to our arrival, communicating with dispatch en route to the scene, monitoring that radio channel. We were led to believe that the caller, the shooter, had started CPR. And so when that happens, if the person is doing CPR and they're doing it effectively in the right place, it's quite common to where you can sustain injuries to the chest. You have to be forceful enough that you're actually going to compress the heart to be able to pump the blood to the body, trying to keep them alive and buy some time for help to arrive. And so typically when that happens, an impression would be left in the area of their sternum, the lower part of their chest, where the hands would have been doing the compressions. And then I didn't see that initially. I started my compressions, and I felt what I would describe as like a crunch or a crack. Again, when you're doing it forcefully enough to be effective, you can have injuries occur to the sternum or a broken rib. They could displace from the sternum where they're connected on that chest wall. And so you can feel that occur typically in that first compression or first couple compressions. And I did feel that.
And in your training and experience, if someone had been performing CPR, would you have expected to feel that crack or that crunch?
I would not have expected to experience that and feel that had they been doing CPR and doing it effectively.
And would you have expected to see some kind of an impression had someone been performing CPR?
Yes, and then in fact, when it became appropriate time for me to stop doing CPR, because my colleagues were further exposing Charles, putting a heart monitor on him so we could see if he had any activity with his heart. So I had to stop compression so we could look at that, and I could see the impression that I created and made now.
Have you performed CPR before on individuals that have some kind of an injury to their body that could result in bleeding?
Yes.
And when you were done performing CPR, did you have blood located on your hands or your gloves?
Yes.
Would you have expected to see that if someone had been performing CPR before you arrived on their hands?
Yes.
If I may have just one moment.
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Blake. Cross-examination?
Your Honor, since we've previously objected to the entirety of this testimony, we don't have any questions.
All right, that'll conclude the testimony of this witness then. Thank you for appearing and testifying today. Is there any objection to this witness being excused?
No, Your Honor, and we would ask that he be excused at this time.
All right, any objection to his being excused?
No objection.
Okay, you can be excused then, and we'll allow the state to call another witness.
Your Honor, the state will call Detective Werther.
How do you spell that last name?
Werther.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, before we proceed with testimony, I'll just inquire as to the witness. Have you reviewed or seen any of the trial testimony in this case before you came here to testify today?
I have not.
All right, thank you for that response. And then I'll just advise you to please answer all questions verbally so we can keep a clear court record and try to avoid talking at the same time as anyone questioning you. With those rules in mind, Ms. Blake, you can commence with your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name and spell your first and last name for the record?
My name is Ariel Werther. That's A-R-I-E-L. Last name W-E-R-T-H-E-R.
Where are you currently employed?
I work for the Chandler Police Department, and I'm assigned to the Robbery Homicide Unit.
What is your current title?
Detective.
How long have you held that position?
As a detective since 2016, but with the robbery homicide unit since 2020.
Do you have prior experience as a law enforcement officer before becoming a detective?
Yes, I was a patrol officer for the city of Chandler. All my employment has been with the city of Chandler.
Do you have any specialized training in order to be a peace officer?
Yes, I attended the Arizona Law Enforcement Academy in Phoenix, Arizona, where I was provided training in order to become a police officer. And then once I graduated from the academy, if I recall, it was a 16 or an 18 week. It's been quite a while. Then I went on the road for a thing called field training, where you are assigned an officer who's been identified as a trainer to teach you how to do the job on the road. Completed my field training, and then I've had advanced ongoing training ever since then.
And did you, Your Honor, I'm going to ask that the court be handed State's Exhibit 43. For the record, it consists of 7 pages. They are printout from a PowerPoint. Defense counsel was provided a copy as well just before we started court this afternoon.
And counsel, could I just have a brief sidebar, please?
Yes.
All right, Madam Prosecutor, before we proceed again, I'll just note we had a brief sidebar regarding the previous rulings the courts made in this case before trial. I did want to just reiterate, since it was some time before I had this instruction. So ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've previously been advised that certain evidence may be admitted for a limited purpose. This evidence may be admissible for a purpose such as proving a motive, opportunity, intent, preparation, plan, knowledge, identity, absence of mistake, or lack of accident. However, such evidence is not admissible to prove a person's character in order to show that on a particular occasion the person acted in accordance with the character. You will be further instructed on this point in an instruction that will be provided to you during your deliberations. So with that, Ms. Blake, you had started offering on an exhibit, and if you want to pick up there again, we can continue with your direct.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask that the witness be shown that exhibit.
And Your Honor, just so the record's clear, I continue my objection for what happened in Chandler, Arizona under 404B.
All right, I've noted your objection, Mr. Archibald, and at this time the objection is overruled.
Detective Werther, could you look at that, the exhibit you've just been handed?
I've reviewed it.
Do you recognize the images shown on those papers?
I do.
And did you, in fact, create those through a PowerPoint presentation?
I did.
Did you create those based on information that you had obtained?
Yes, I did.
Do you believe that those slides would be effective in assisting you today with your testimony?
I do.
Your Honor, I would ask for the admission of State's Exhibit 43.
Any objection?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Very well. Considered that, and based on the court's previous ruling, the objection's overruled, and that exhibit is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Werther, were you working on July 11th of 2019?
I was.
Do you recall responding out to the report of a shooting?
I do.
When you responded out, were you given any specific assignment initially?
I had no specific assignment. For context, at the time I was actually assigned as a detective in the Special Victims Unit, primarily investigating sex crimes. But as a matter of succession planning, it was known to everyone that I wanted to come to the Robbery Homicide Unit. So at times on calls, and this was one of them, I would respond out to essentially shadow and assist with minor tasks, but I was not given primary responsibilities as I was not on the team.
But you were there on scene on July 11th.
I was.
And then the following day, did you have a conversation with another detective?
I did.
And who was that?
Detective Moffat.
At that time, based on your conversation, were you assigned a specific task?
I was.
And what was that?
The task was to call Ms. Vallow, as no one had, as I understood it, obtained documentation information for her son J.J., Joshua Jackson Vallow. As he wasn't present at the scene during the initial investigation, it seemed no one had gathered his name, date of birth, or any of that information.
Did you, in fact, do that?
I did.
And when you made contact with Ms. Vallow, did she provide any information to you?
Yes, I called her on the phone, and during our recorded call, she provided his basic information to be put in the report, which is fairly standard, as he was said to have been present during the incident. And then we talked about the school to which she had allegedly taken him after the shooting occurred, and she gave me the information for a Lawrence Life Academy, and I later looked up where that was. And she also told me that between leaving the scene of the shooting and going to Lawrence Life Academy, she had gone to a Burger King to get JJ food.
And after you had spoken with Ms. Vallow, did you end up taking on any additional tasks in regards to an investigation?
Yes, the next task that I was given was to actually locate video from the Burger King showing at what time she visited the Burger King.
And did you, in fact, do that?
I did.
And were you able to determine what time she had gone to the Burger King?
Yes, on that same day I was able to go, and one of my practices which I adhered to in this case is when I'm looking at video evidence, I will ask to see the live view first and see what the timestamp on the live view shows and compare it to the timestamp on my phone in order to show that the time is relatively reliable, which I did in this case. The times matched. Then I was able to see video from the 11th and establish what time she and her vehicle passed through the drive-thru.
And were you aware of what time, or are you aware of what time the initial 911 call was placed regarding that shooting?
The initial 911 call was placed at 8:36 in the morning, if I'm remembering correctly.
So it would have been after Ms. Vallow was at the Burger King?
Well, yes. So what I found on the video is the video evidence showed that her vehicle, and also captured her image through the drive-thru window, that visit was at 7:55 in the morning, 7:54 or 7:55 in the morning.
And, Your Honor, I would ask permission to publish the State's Exhibit 43.
You may publish it.
Oh, it's going to be actually on a PowerPoint presentation. And I do have a copy. It's the same slides that the court saw. I do have a copy of a jump drive marked that we will submit into evidence as well.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. That'll be the formal exhibit that will be admitted into the case.
And in looking at the image on the screen, I'm not sure if it appears on that screen in front of you as well.
It does.
What are we seeing on this screen?
So these are a few locations in Chandler, Arizona, and also in Gilbert, Arizona. The direction indicated in the lower right-hand side of your screen, if you're facing it, shows north to be towards the top of the screen, and there's a mile marker indicating 5 miles for scale to give an approximate idea of the relationship of things. This is sourced from Google Earth Pro, and the locations that I have marked on here using Google Earth Pro from the bottom of the screen up are 5531 South Four Peaks Place, the scene of the shooting, the Burger King, and the Lawrence Life Academy where J.J. was dropped off. And then another location we'll speak of in a moment, and which I neglected to put here on the page, but just above and one street over to the west from Lawrence Life Academy, we will talk about a Walgreens location, which is on a slide that will come up shortly.
And, Your Honor, may I ask that the detective be provided with a pointer to just show us that location?
Yes, we'll give him the laser pointer.
I thought that was a pen.
Thank you. If you just want to show us on there the area you were just describing.
Right there is there's a Walgreens at that location, and again, I have a detail that shows it later on in the sequence.
And these are the locations that were provided to you by Ms. Vallow.
Yes and no. The Walgreens is not something we discussed, and I'm not certain if she specified that Burger King to me, but that is the Burger King that I went to where I found the video.
And then if you look at the slide that's being shown right now, could you explain what we're seeing here?
Yes, this is detail for more context. Again, north towards the top of the screen. We're now at a scale that has a 1 mile indicator, and this shows 5531 South Four Peaks, and then about two major streets north of there on the west side is where the Burger King is located at 2865 East Ocotillo Road in Chandler.
And you indicated that the Burger King video showed her there around 7:54, 7:55 a.m.?
That's right. I also obtained a receipt which was time-stamped 7:56 for the actual purchase.
And she had indicated to you she had taken J.J. to Lawrence Academy.
Correct.
Did you do anything as part of your investigation to try to determine how long it would take to get from the residence where Charles was shot to J.J.'s school?
Yes.
And what did you learn, or what did you do to determine that?
Again, using data sourced from Google, I evaluated the most direct route as Google provided it, which comes in somewhere between 7 and 8 miles from 5531 South Four Peaks to Lawrence Academy. I was aware that the 911 call came in at 8:36. I was aware the first officer was on scene from body-worn camera that I had reviewed and from the CAD record that he was on scene at 8:42. And I was aware that he had captured Ms. Vallow on recording at 8:48 back at the scene at 5531 South Four Peaks. One of the things we discussed is it didn't seem plausible that a person could drive that distance and back in the amount of time from the 911 call to when she first appeared on body-worn video.
And when you say that you had discussed, do you recall who you discussed that with?
I know I discussed it with Detective Moffat. I may have discussed it with other members of the team as well.
And is that pretty common that you will discuss investigations as a team?
Yes, so that we're sharing ideas and trying to determine the best way to proceed, and so that people aren't going off in one direction without everyone else knowing what's going on. It's the best way to proceed.
And after you'd gone to Burger King and verified that video, did you do anything further with trying to verify locations?
Yes. I did on that same day, I believe, which was the Friday, the day after the shooting. I went and visited multiple CVS locations. I had been told that another detective had information that Ms. Vallow may have stopped at a CVS or a Walgreens, and I think it was originally communicated as a CVS in order to buy flip-flops for the children who had apparently left the house without shoes. I went to, I think, 6 or 7 locations trying to find video and did not find video on that day.
Are you aware if at any point video was recovered of Ms. Vallow at a CVS, or at Walgreens, excuse me?
Yes, because I did eventually recover it. It was based on the location data, however, which we haven't discussed yet.
So leading into that, other location data, did you review data from Charles Vallow's phone?
I did.
And is Charles Vallow's phone in possession of the Chandler Police Department?
Last I knew, yes.
And do you know where that phone was recovered from?
I understand that another detective recovered it from Ms. Vallow after the event.
Were you tasked with looking at location data linked to that phone?
I was.
And did you in fact review that data?
I did.
What did you discover from your review of that data?
So if we advance to the next slide, this here is 5531 South 4 Peaks Place with the north indicator again and to scale for reference. What I've added on here, notations with the about symbol, for me that stands in for approximately. I'm saying at approximately 7:32, what I'm calling CV phone, which is Charles Vallow's phone, arrives in the area of 5531 South 4 Peaks. Now, the location data that we're deriving this from is data that was stored physically on the phone and then extracted by the computer crimes unit and provided to me. This data from the phone indicates that at about 7:32, the phone was in the area of the 4 Peaks Place address, and at about 7:49, the phone left that area. And then the next slide. This is the Burger King at 2865 East Ocotillo Road, again with the north indicator, although I seem to have cropped it out just slightly. This shows that at about 7:54, LV, which is Lori Vallow in my notation, is on video in the drive-thru. That's the video that I obtained and that I reviewed and placed into evidence. Around 7:55, there's location data from Charles Vallow's phone in that area. Around 7:56, Lori Vallow is on video leaving the drive-thru. And at 7:56, Charles Vallow's phone location data also leaves the area. This is that Walgreens I talked about. So if you recall on the first slide I showed, this is the one that was a half block north and 1 block west of the Lawrence Life Academy approximately. This shows that at about 8:15 in the morning, Lori Vallow is on video at this Walgreens. Now, the way I found out about this was by reviewing the location data, noticing that there was a Walgreens there, calling the manager, asking if a person fitting her general description, although I did not provide her name or the reason for my inquiry, only that I was a police detective calling to ask. I asked if such a person came in and perhaps purchased some flip-flops. She located the data, provided it to me, and then the video was placed in evidence. So having reviewed that video, I see that at around 8:15, she is on video entering and making that purchase. I also obtained a receipt for that. And at around 8:15, Charles Vallow's phone location data indicates that the phone was in that area. At around 8:20, the video at the Walgreens loses sight of Ms. Vallow as she leaves.
And if we go to the next slide, what are we seeing here?
This here indicates that around 8:32, Charles Vallow's phone is in the area of the Lawrence Life Academy, which Ms. Vallow had previously stated she had gone and dropped J.J. off at that location after the shooting. And I think, yep. And then if we go to, oh, there it is. So here we have, there's a typographical error. That's my error. That says 7:36. That should say 8:36. There's a 911 call reporting the shooting. The reason that's relevant is we were just at 8:32 at the Lawrence Life Academy, indicating that the phone was in that area. But the 911 call does not come in until 8:36 in the morning. 8:42, as I previously stated, the first officer arrives at the scene. Around 8:47 is the first location data from Charles Vallow's phone, indicating it's back in that area. And at 8:48 on the body-worn camera video timestamp, Lori Vallow appears on that officer's video.
And in looking at the location data with Charles' phone, did you learn who had Charles' phone in their possession?
Not from the location data, but I had been advised by other detectives that the information
And I'll
was...
object, Your Honor, to hearsay.
I'll sustain that.
You had responded to the scene on July 11th, correct?
Correct.
When you got to the scene, did you ever observe Charles Vallow?
I did.
And where was Charles Vallow observed?
Charles Vallow was in the first room when one enters into the home, and he was laying on the floor, and he was deceased.
Did Charles Vallow have his phone with him?
I never saw his phone.
Did you learn through your investigation whether his phone was recovered on his body?
I learned that it was not.
If I may have just a moment, Your Honor. And I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Blake. Cross-examination, counsel?
Detective, do you have information as to who made that 911 call?
It's my understanding, although I never had contact with him, that the 911 call was made by Alex Cox.
And did you speak to Alex Cox?
At no point.
When you arrived at the scene, there were other officers talking to Alex Cox?
Yes, I believe so.
And in your investigation, you're not one of the officers who talked to him?
That's right. I did not interview him.
And with the Charles Vallow phone, that the phone itself was going to Burger King and to Lauren's Life Academy and to Walgreens, is that right?
That's right.
And who else was in the car with Lori Vallow?
I can't know for certain. I know on the video at the Burger King that there was someone in the front passenger seat. It wasn't someone I recognized, and I couldn't tell if anyone was in the back seats of the vehicle.
But would that have been Tylee Ryan that you learned that she was in the car and at that time?
I was told that both of the children were in the vehicle, but I never directly verified that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor. And we would ask that this witness be excused.